Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my Dawn of Dreams, no damage, hard run. We're still in the Shimabara assault of stage 15, and as you can see, it's a little bit maze-like in this incredibly questionable level design. But fear not, by the end of the duration we will be out of this place, and the next two missions have pretty linear and non-confusing layouts, so the room I was just in then is important. What we need to do is we need to have the ability to link that room we were just in with the ability to swap characters, because I don't know if you noticed, but there was a crack in the wall, and there are two other rooms in this place where you mess with the machinery, and then the third one is in the room we were just in. But the thing with that third one is you can only get to it using Jubei. So you can't go the path that needs the metal doors because you need Roberto, so you need to have linked it up in such a fashion that you can swap characters, get back there, and go through the crack. And it sounds simple, doesn't it? You know, go to two rooms, mess with machines, and then the third room you need to link a character swap before you can mess with the machine. But because it is, you know, so circuitous and contrived, it's nowhere near as you know, easy to remember or to perform, so it just results in this, you know, almost repetitive looking gameplay of me turning these cranks and entering these rooms, and you know, they all kind of bleed together, which it is a shame. But you'll notice there's a character changer there, and ooh, this is pretty important actually. I'm gonna get hit here, and the stipulations of this playthrough are quite simple. It's a no damage run, so one of the criteria is I do not qualify damage that happens on my character, because I restart and you never see that. But what's going to happen is I'm going to swap to Roberto, and the frame I take control of him during the effect, he takes damage, and the hit registers before I take effect. So I'm not counting it, folks, because it's bullshit. It's one of those moments where it doesn't make any sense. Like, as soon as I'm in control, I'm already damaged. It's just one of those, you know, unfortunate sequences. And because of the way that this game checkpoints, and because I wasn't, you know, wanting to stave the arse off this playthrough, I would have had to have done like everything again, because the checkpoint was like 3 rooms away and it didn't link, and I had different HP values, and it was just a lot of messing around, so I just left it in. And it's going to happen here, because I think that douchebag there throws something at Roberto. So let's watch. This is it, I've slowed it down. You see that? And I'm like, does that count? Is that my fault? Did you see an attack? Like, I swapped to Roberto, and in the particles, I'm injured. So I'm classing it as I wasn't in control when he took the damage, and thus it does not void my challenge run. And I'm sure there'll probably be somebody out there who thinks that it does, and you know, I make these videos for fun, guys. I don't make them to prove anything. But here we are anyway. This is, I believe, the room we want to be in. There's the crack in the wall, what Jubei can go through. We just need the character changer, and to do that we need this room to be unlocked. And the only way to unlock it is to unlock it on the other side. And it might be this one, actually, which we've already done. And if this is the room I think it is... No, it's not. Yeah, it's... I like puzzles, but I don't like them when the main tenet of their design is identical looking rooms and a set sequence of traversing said rooms, because I just think it's not very fun. And I don't want to bang on this game, because I think this game's fantastic, and for the time it came out, you know, I think it did a really good job. It didn't sell very well, because Onimusha, unfortunately, sales-wise, was on its way out, because Capcom did the same thing they always do. They had, you know, a pretty ridiculous expectations for the sales figures that they wanted. They didn't reach those figures, and thus they looked at it as an unsuccessful, you know, piece of investment. But this has to be the cheapest one they've made, because there's no star rights they had to pay for the main character. And all the people who wish that there was a high-definition remake of this series, this is pretty much the only game you have any chance of seeing as a high-definition remake, because it doesn't feature any famous actors that they have to get rights for. And all the other ones do. I mean, the third one has Jean Reno in it, for Christ's sake, which is as eclectic as it gets. Like, I love me some Jean Reno, however you want to pronounce his name, bit of Leon, but it's just so superfluous. You know, why? Why is that the way it is? I just don't get it. But now that we've got the cog for the green machine, we can traverse back the way we came. That's 2 of the machines down. There's, I believe, only 1 left. Like, it's just so confusing, and I think it'd be a better game without this level. I really do. Like, the first elevator one frustrated me because I just, you know, it didn't immediately make sense, so I was just turning around the room a lot and going in rooms and getting confused. And it's funny, when we play games nowadays, I tend not to get stuck because they're not the same kind of games anymore. But you come back to these older titles and, you know, that feeling of being stuck is nowhere less frustrating than it was when you were a kid. And I remember fearing sections in games because I knew I'd get stuck and I knew I didn't know what to do. And at that moment, you feel like it's impossible. You feel like you just can't figure out what the hell's going on. Like, you can see I'm a little bit frustrated here because I'm messing around with the block, which I don't do often. But, you know, every so often you just realise that I wasn't having as much fun as I perhaps wanted to. And this room is important because we need the key for this, which we have. And this is going to allow us to link changing characters to the room with the crack, because above us is the room with the crack, if you remember. And that's how this works. We needed the key, we needed those machines, and now we can finally get this sorted out. And the only thing you want to be wary of is the enemies randomly spawn. There's the first one. It will either be these guys, or it will be the black and gold enemies. That is an invisible dude, so be careful. He can ruin many a run if he clips you with that ridiculous tentacle arm of his. But I had a very listless day yesterday, and I wanted to finish commentating this guide, but I was unable to due to, you know, life circumstances, which sounds like a very dramatic way of saying I just couldn't. You know, as much as I wanted to, I was not in a situation where I was able to. And I don't know about you, but when I set my mind on doing something and then I can't do it, it kind of just puts me in a really lethargic mood. It kind of, you know, it ruins my day in some ways. It ruins my mood. And I don't want to come off here as, you know, being self-centered and selfish. Like, if I can't do it my way, it's not fair. But I think it's difficult to recover from those kind of moods. And on top of that, I actually sacrificed going to see my girlfriend to try and finish this project. And then when I was unable to work on it, you know, I got super pissed off. And I played a few games, you know, to try and take my mind off it. But I was in that listless, restless state of I had no patience to play. And the thought occurred to me, you know, I was not in the right mood to play video games. So I thought about it, and, like, to my knowledge, there is no set mentality, mood, or feeling that I have to be a certain way for me to be able to play. You know, in the past I've always just been able to, you know, just put things aside and just enjoy what I'm doing. But every so often I get these, you know, super just listless. That's really the only thing I can call it. These listless, lethargic, just, I don't know, weird moments where nothing keeps my attention and I don't really know what I want to do. So I generally end up just either watching films or random videos on the internet, and the entire time I'm thinking that I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or I could be doing this, and I just don't do any of it. It's, you know, it's wasted time, and I wish I could snap myself out of it. And sometimes I can, you know, sometimes it's because I haven't eaten, or, you know, sometimes maybe I need a coffee, or, you know, I need a drink. But occasionally there's just, you know, nothing remedies it. And I'll go to bed, I'll wake up the next day, and I'll be fine again. But you always look back and think, you know, the shit I could have got done, this, you know, I could have done so much in that space of time, but I just couldn't motivate myself to do it. And I always think of, what could, this be an indicator of? And your first thoughts always go to things, like depression or manic depression, which is something I've researched a few years ago. And I don't think I have any of those things. I just think, like most people, you have those off days. And I think it can be a lot of things coming together at once, maybe on a subconscious level that you don't realise. And they just get to you, even though you don't feel like anything's wrong. And we all have them. I just am so unused to it, because normally I lose myself in things. I lose myself in writing, or I lose myself in designing, or playing games, or watching stuff, or reading, So many distractions, so many, interesting ways to fill time. But when you can't fill that time, and nothing feels good, it's just the strangest feeling ever. But I'm glad I don't feel it today, and we're going to get to the end of this walkthrough, and it's going to be a fun one, and it's going to be awesome. And, the views on this walkthrough are not exactly high, but it's an old game, and it's pretty eclectic, so I don't really expect them to be, but the people who are watching seem to be really digging it, which is great. And I solved some of my emulator woes as well. Oh, be careful here, the fireballs cannot seem to break your guard, so if you hear one coming up on you, even though they make zero noise most of the time, if you hold guard, they can't hurt you. If you stand in a certain position, they'll just go straight past you, but for the most you want to be holding guard, because it's the safest way to assure you don't take any chip damage. But I managed to get Beautiful Joe running at 60 frames per second, but I sacrificed some of the visual quality. Because instead of going 3 times the native resolution, or on a custom resolution, to make the game pop a little bit better and look a little nicer, I had to put it on native. And native is essentially what it looked like on the PS2, with a slight up-res, just through the sake of the hardware that's projecting it. So it looks decent enough, it looks nice, it doesn't look as good as it would if it was on obviously 3 times the value it is right now, but whenever I do 3 times the value, the frame rate fluctuates between 40 to 55 frames, and that sounds quite high if you're playing on a console, and it would be, but when you're used to solid 60, it just feels sluggish and unresponsive, and I can't play that way. So there's a chance you might see an Ultra V rated run of a walkthrough for Beautiful Joe, because I never beat that difficulty. I got up to the boss gauntlet when the game first came out for the GameCube, and I never beat the final boss of that gauntlet, because when you die on that game, there is no checkpoint, so you have to beat all 5 bosses again before you can get to the one who's hard. And as you can imagine, it's a pretty tall order on the hardest difficulty, and I was obviously too young, not skilled enough or patient enough to do it. Who knows, maybe I was a great gamer then and it's just super fucking hard. So there's a chance you might see that. Once again, this is a Mitsunari fight where I'm going to be using the Isen to kill him quickly, but it looks significantly more simple than it is, because if I touch any of these glowing things on the floor, I'll take damage, and if I do not dodge immediately after the Isen critical, I'll take damage as well. So it's a tricky fight, but get your counter down and it will definitely alleviate it. This is an opportunity to hit him with a few things. I think I finish him with the Purifying Sword. Yeah, I do. There we go. So once he dies, it's going to go on to the second phase of the fight where he turns into his Gemma form. And this is a really interesting idea and a pretty fun boss, but once again it's ruined by Onimusha Dawn of Dreams' tendency to make it overly long. For some reason this game, and I don't know why, decides to give certain bosses an insane amount of HP. When the boss pattern is so simple, the only real danger to yourself is extreme boredom and frustration brought on by just a tedious fight. And all you do here is you hit its core to stop it, and then you get critical damage on its core. It's a super simple boss fight, but it lasts so damn long. And it lasts just as long on normal if you're not careful, because it's just one of those stupidly long fights. And a little fun fact about both Mitsunari fights, this one and the previous one, and then the one on the other chapter, if you bring Roberto as your partner into that fight, because he's part of the storyline in this fight, you will fight alone. And it's not a big deal, because your partner, for the most, is a liability more than anything. They don't really do much, and you'll notice I always have them to defend, that way they don't die all the time, because they're really terrible at surviving. But sometimes it can be useful to have two people, and in that fight, if you really needed a second person, you will not have one if you take Roberto with you. So you'll notice I swapped him out before I went into the room, because I got caught out on my first playthrough a few times with that happening. But on this, whenever you see me thrust the gun, it means that it read the input wrong. I'm not blaming the game, it's probably my 360 controller because it does have a dodgy analog. All I'm saying is, it's annoying as fuck, and it misses the opportunity to kill this boss quicker. And anything that helps you kill this boss quicker is something you want, because it takes far too long. When it does its drive-bys, it's going to drop this jizz on the ground, the green and purple jizz. What it does is it poisons you, and you have to absorb it to get rid of it. So, instead of capitalising on hitting the monster as it flies by, which you can do, I'm going to capitalise on absorbing all the trash on the ground so I don't accidentally walk into it off camera, you know, when my camera's not facing it, and I back up and I take damage, and it's frustrating. It's just, like, by the end of this video you will know exactly how to fight this boss, and if you were to play this game you would be able to do it very easily. And I think that's a testament to something that's a good idea but it's just poorly executed. Because the whole point of a guide is it should encourage you to be able to do it. You can see somebody do it, you can obviously pick up a few tips and tricks, but you shouldn't immediately be able to apply them. There should be a learning process in that. When you immediately can do what is done in videos, it generally means that there is a measure of difficulty or balancing that's kind of lacking. And it's not a bad thing, it's just, you know, once you've seen that thing attack and you know what your openings are, it's literally down to you, and the only time you will make a mistake is when you're trying to force it because you just don't want to fight it any longer. And I've done it myself numerous times. But thank you very much for watching. I hope the guide is helping, or just at least entertaining. And as always, you take care now.